You know, I've despised you since the very first day I met you." Jessica Monroe shouts these words across the event hall. It is 9:30 in the evening. The air conditioning is blasting far too cold, and the room smells of wilting flowers. There are 50 guests staring at me, some with their mouths hanging open, others lowering their gaze to their plates. I am sitting at the main table in my dark green dress. My hands are resting on the white tablecloth. They are not shaking. Jessica is standing, holding her champagne flute. Her white dress is a size too small. My son, Ryan, is beside her, chewing on a shrimp. He doesn't look up from his plate. "I can't take it anymore. This whole situation," Jessica says, her voice raspy. "Ryan, tell your mother that after the wedding, she can no longer live in the house." It makes me sick to my stomach watching her shuffle around in those worn-out flip-flops every single day. The guests whisper. Margaret Hayes, my neighbor for 30 years, looks at me with pity. Frank Miller, the man who runs the corner butcher shop, clenches his fists. But no one says a word. No one defends me. Look at her, just sitting there in silence. Jessica continues, pointing her finger at me. Like a statue. That's what she's like every day in the house. Wandering the halls like a ghost, banging pots and pans around at 5 o'clock in the morning. Ryan finally lifts his head. His face is flushed. He takes a gulp of red wine and dabs his mouth with a napkin. "Jessica, please," he says in a low voice. "Not here." "Why not here?" Jessica laughs. "Everyone already knows. Everyone knows your mother is a burden on us. A 67-year-old woman who doesn't know how to do anything but make casseroles and watch her daytime soap operas." I feel the heat rising up my neck, my cheeks burning. But I say nothing. I do not move. I just smile. A small, almost imperceptible smile. Because they do not know what I know. They do not know what I have been preparing for the last 3 months. "Besides," Jessica says, taking a step toward me, "after the wedding, we're going to need the whole house for ourselves, for our children. Your mother can go live in a nursing home. There are plenty of good ones in the city." Ryan nods. My own son nods, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, as if I were a piece of old furniture that was no longer useful. "Caroline," Jessica says, addressing me directly now, "I hope you understand that things are going to change. You've done your part as a mother. Now it's time for you to step aside and let us live our lives." The silence is heavy, dense. I can hear my own breathing. I can hear the ticking of the wall clock. Everyone is waiting for my reaction. They expect me to cry, to scream, to get up and run out like a defeated woman. But I am not a defeated woman. Not after everything I have discovered. Not after all the months I have spent preparing for this exact moment. "Jessica is right," I say finally. My voice comes out calm and clear. It is time for things to change. Everyone looks at me, surprised. Jessica smirks, thinking she has finally broken me. Ryan sighs in relief, believing this will be easier than he thought. But then I do something no one expects. I raise my right hand and give a discreet signal to the MC standing by the sound system. He sees me. He has been patient. He knows exactly what to do. We have rehearsed this many times. "Ladies and gentlemen," the MC says, taking the microphone, "the mother of the groom has prepared a very special surprise for the future spouses. A gift they will never forget." Jessica looks at me, confused. Her malicious smile slowly fades. Ryan stops chewing, his mouth agape. Everyone turns toward the giant screen hanging on the main wall of the hall. The lights dim. The murmur of the guests ceases completely. I continue to smile. Because after 67 years of life, after 40 years of marriage, after 35 years of being a mother, my moment has finally arrived. The screen hums to life. And then, slowly, the video that will change everything forever begins to play. The video that will show everyone who my son Ryan really is, who Jessica Monroe really is. The video that will set me free, once and for all. In the darkness of the hall, as the screen comes alive, I think of only one thing. They had no idea I had it all planned. That for months I had been gathering proof. That for months I had been waiting for this exact moment. My revenge is just beginning. It all started 5 years ago, when my husband Theodore died of a heart attack. Ryan was 30 years old then. He was living in his downtown apartment, working at his godfather's hardware store, and he would come visit me every Sunday after church. He would bring donuts and fresh ground coffee. We would sit in the kitchen and talk about his job, his plans, the girls he was dating. "Mom," he would say, taking my hand, "don't you worry about a thing. I'm always going to take care of you. Dad asked me to before he died, and I gave him my word." Those words were a comfort. They made me feel that I was not alone in the world, that my only son loved me as I had loved him for all those years. But everything changed when Ryan lost his job. The hardware store went under, and he could not find anything else. He had bank debts. He had to give up his apartment. One night, he showed up at my house with 2 suitcases and eyes red from crying. "It's just for a few months, Mom," he said, "until I get back on my feet." I said yes. Of course I said yes. He was my son, my only family. The house was large, filled with memories of his father. I thought it would be nice to have the company. The first few months were peaceful. Ryan looked for work during the day. At night, we would watch television together. I cooked his favorite meals. He helped me with the heavy groceries. It seemed like everything would be fine. But Ryan did not find a job. 6 months passed, then a year. He started drinking beer in the afternoons. He would stay up late watching videos on his phone. He stopped helping me with chores around the house. He stopped looking for work with the same energy. "This town has no opportunities," he would say. "All the jobs are for young people who know their way around a computer." I tried to encourage him. I told him things would get better, that he had to be patient. But inside, I was starting to worry. My son was changing. He was becoming bitter, resentful. And then Jessica Monroe appeared. He met her at a birthday party at his cousin Megan's house. Jessica was 23 years old. She worked as a paralegal at a law firm and came from a wealthy family. Her father owned 3 clothing boutiques downtown. Ryan came home that night talking about her as if he had met a goddess. "Mom, she's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. She's smart, elegant, sophisticated, and she actually paid attention to me. I can't believe it." At first, I was happy for him. I thought a girlfriend would do him good, that it would motivate him to get a job, that it would pull him out of the depression he was sinking into. But when Jessica came to visit for the first time, I knew immediately there was something I did not like. She arrived in an expensive dress and high heels. She looked at my home as if it were a dirty place. She sat on the edge of the sofa as if she were afraid of getting it soiled. "Caroline," she said to me with a fake smile, "Ryan has told me so much about you. You have such a lovely home." But her eyes said something else. Her eyes scanned the old curtains, the worn wooden furniture, the yellowed photographs on the walls. Her eyes were judging me. During dinner, Jessica talked nonstop about her job, her friends, the expensive restaurants she liked to eat at. Ryan looked at her, captivated, hanging on every word that came from her red-painted lips. "My family has a house at the beach," Jessica said. "We should go for a weekend, Ryan. You'll love it." After that first visit, Ryan began to change even more. He started criticizing my cooking. Jessica says I eat too much salt, that it's not healthy. He started complaining about how I dressed. "Mom, why don't you buy some more modern clothes? Jessica knows some really great stores." Slowly, my son drifted away from me. We no longer watched television together. We no longer talked in the kitchen. He went out every night with Jessica and came home late. On weekends, he would go to the Monroe's beach house. And when he returned, he always had something to complain about. That the house was too old, that I did not know how to cook modern food, that my friends from the neighborhood were uneducated people. "Jessica says you should learn how to use a computer," he told me once. "That women your age can't afford to get left behind." "Jessica says this house needs a complete remodel," he said another time. "It'll never be worth anything looking like this." It was always, "Jessica says this, Jessica says that," as if that girl's opinions were worth more than mine, as if she knew my own house, my own life, better than I did. But the worst came when Ryan announced they were getting married. It was a Tuesday evening. I was washing dishes after dinner. He came in with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. "Mom, I have some important news," he said. "Jessica accepted my proposal." End of 2. I forced myself to smile, to congratulate him, to hug him. But inside, I felt a cold knot in my stomach, a premonition, a fear I could not explain. "When are you getting married?" I asked him. "In 6 months. Jessica wants a big wedding. Her parents are going to pay for everything." That night, after Ryan went to bed, I lay awake, thinking about how my son had changed, thinking about the way Jessica looked at me, thinking about the future. And for the first time in my life, I was afraid of being alone. Not alone because my husband was gone, but alone because my own son was becoming a stranger. Someone who no longer saw me as his mother. Someone who saw me the way Jessica saw me. As an obstacle. As something old and useless. That was the night I began to understand that my son was no longer my son. He had become someone else. A person I did not know. A person who scared me. The first time I learned the truth was on a Thursday afternoon. Ryan had gone out with Jessica to look at wedding dresses. I was cleaning his room, because he never did it anymore. Under his bed, I found a folder full of papers. At first, I thought they were documents from the job he had gotten at the gas station. But when I saw my name written on one of the papers, my curiosity got the better of me. I opened the folder, and my world fell apart. They were bank documents. Paperwork for a loan Ryan had taken out using my house as collateral. My house. The house my husband and I bought with the sweat of 40 years of work. The house where Ryan was born and raised. He had forged my signature. He had submitted documents stating that I had agreed to put the house up as security for a $20,000 loan, money he had used to buy a new car and to pay for the honeymoon Jessica wanted in Cancun. My hands trembled as I read. My heart pounded so hard I thought I was going to have a heart attack like my husband. Ryan had lied. He had committed fraud. He had put the only place I had in the world at risk. But the worst was yet to come. I found other papers. Copies of documents showing that Ryan had been researching nursing homes. He had a list with prices, locations, services. He had marked the cheapest ones with a yellow highlighter. On a loose sheet, in his own handwriting, he had jotted down, "Mom, Oakwood Meadows, $3,000 a month, close to the hospital in case of emergencies." I sat on his bed, the papers in my hands. I could not breathe. I could not think. My own son was planning to put me in a home. My own son had decided my future without asking me a single thing. But there was still worse to come. At the bottom of the folder, there was a yellow envelope. Inside, I found a handwritten letter from Jessica. A letter addressed to Ryan that said, "My love, I already spoke with my parents and they agree. After the wedding, your mom can't keep living with us. It's impossible to start a new family with an old woman in the house. I already checked, and Oakwood Meadows is very nice. They have nurses 24 hours a day and activities to keep her busy. We can sell some of your mom's old furniture to pay for the first 3 months. Don't feel guilty. It's for the best for everyone." I read that letter 5 times. Each word was a knife in my chest. Jessica did not just despise me. She had convinced Ryan that I was a problem to be solved, an obstacle to be removed from their path. I put everything back exactly as I had found it. I closed the folder. I slid it back under the bed. I walked out of the room on trembling legs and sat in the kitchen to drink a glass of water. For the next 2 hours, all I could do was cry. Cry for the son that no longer existed. Cry for the family I had lost without even realizing it. Cry for the future that others had decided for me. When Ryan came home that night, I had already dried my tears. I had made a decision. I was not going to confront him. I was not going to scream at him. I was not going to cry in front of him. I was going to do something much smarter. I was going to watch. I was going to listen. I was going to gather information. Because if my own son was capable of betraying me like this, I needed to know just how far his treachery went. "How did it go with the dresses?" I asked as he poured himself a glass of water. "Good, Mom. Jessica found a really beautiful one. A little expensive, but her parents are going to help." He lied so naturally. He smiled while he lied to me, as if I were a fool who did not notice anything. "I'm happy for you both," I said. "You deserve the best." That night, after Ryan fell asleep, I began my own investigation. I went through all the papers I had on my desk. I looked for documents for the house, my husband's life insurance policy, my bank account. I discovered that Ryan had been going through my things for months. Some papers were in different places. Others had marks from being photocopied. I also found something that chilled me to the bone. An app on his phone that he had left open on the kitchen table. A voice recording app. There were files dated over the last 3 months. Recordings of our conversations. I put on headphones and listened to one. It was a conversation we'd had the week before about my savings. I had told him I had a little money put away for emergencies. In the recording, you could hear my voice perfectly, stating the exact amount. Ryan had been spying on me. He had been compiling information about my money, my property, my private conversations. That dawn, sitting in the darkness of my kitchen, I understood that the situation was much worse than I had imagined. They did not just want to get rid of me. They were planning to rob me. They were documenting everything to justify that I was a senile old woman who could not manage her own affairs. For the first time in 67 years of life, I felt true terror. Terror of my own son. Terror of ending up on the street. Terror of dying alone and abandoned in a home while they lived in my house with my money. But along with the terror came something I had never felt before. Rage. A cold, calculating, intelligent rage. A rage that did not ask me to scream or cry. A rage that asked me to plan. If Ryan and Jessica wanted to play dirty, I was going to teach them how to really play dirty. If they thought they could manipulate a foolish old woman, they were about to find out they had picked the wrong woman. That dawn, while they slept peacefully, believing they had everything under control, I began to plan my counterattack. They did not know that in 40 years of marriage, I had learned to be very observant. They did not know that I had raised a son and therefore knew every form of manipulation. They did not know that the quiet, submissive woman they saw every day was just a mask. A mask I had worn to keep the peace in my family. But the peace was over, and the mask was about to come off. The next day, my real work would begin. The work of saving my life and my dignity. The work of showing them they had chosen the wrong victim. The work of preparing the complete and utter destruction of their plans. The next day, I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning, as always. But this time was different. I was not the same woman who had gone to bed the night before. During those few hours of sleep, something had changed inside me. The victim had died. A strategist had been born. I made coffee and sat in the kitchen with a new notebook I had bought the previous week to write down recipes. Now, I was going to use it for something completely different. To plan the downfall of my son and his fiancée. On the first page, I wrote, Ryan Thompson and Jessica Monroe, Revenge Plan. Below, I made a list of everything I had discovered. The fraudulent loan, the nursing home plans, the secret recordings, Jessica's letter. It was all documented. I had proof, but I needed more. When Ryan came down for breakfast, I had my first performance ready. Son, I said, serving him scrambled eggs, I was thinking yesterday about what you said about the wedding. I think you're right. This house is too old for a young couple. Ryan looked up, surprised. Really, Mom? Yes, I lied with a smile. Jessica deserves to start her marriage in a nice place. You two need your privacy. Ryan's eyes lit up. He thought he had won, that he had finally convinced me to leave voluntarily. So what are you going to do? Where will you go? Well, I said, acting as if I were thinking it over, I've been looking at some options. There are some very nice places for people my age, with activities, nurses, other ladies to talk to. It was a lie, of course, but I needed Ryan to think his plan was working. I needed him to let his guard down. I'm so glad you're thinking that way, Mom. Jessica is going to be thrilled. After breakfast, Ryan left for work, whistling. He thought he had won the lottery, that I would leave without a fight and he would get everything. As soon as he was gone, I picked up the phone and called Arthur Vance, the lawyer who had been my husband's friend for 30 years. Arthur was 72 and retired, but he still helped old friends with legal problems. Arthur, I said, I need to see you urgently. It's a very serious matter. Of course, Caroline. Do you want me to come to your house? No. Better at your office. And Arthur, this has to stay between us. No one can know I came to see you. An hour later, I was sitting across from Arthur in his small downtown office. I told him everything. I showed him the copies I had made of the fraudulent loan documents. I showed him Jessica's letter. I explained about the recordings. Arthur listened in silence, shaking his head sadly. When I finished speaking, he took off his glasses and wiped his eyes. "Caroline," he said, "this is very serious. Ryan committed forgery and bank fraud. He could go to prison. I don't want to send him to prison, Arthur. He's my son. But I also don't want to end up in a nursing home while they live in my house with my money. What do you want to do then? I want to protect myself. I want to make sure they can't do anything to me. And I want them to learn a lesson they will never forget." Arthur smiled. It was the first time I had seen him smile since I arrived. "I always knew you were smarter than you let on. Your husband always told me." "Arthur," he would say, "my Caroline seems quiet, but she has the most brilliant mind I've ever known." For the next 2 hours, Arthur and I designed a perfect strategy. First, he would legally investigate the fraudulent loan. Second, he would help me change my will without Ryan finding out. Third, we would document everything Ryan and Jessica were doing. "You need more solid proof," Arthur told me. "You need to record them talking about their plans. You need evidence that they are conspiring against you." He explained how the small recorders they sold at electronics stores worked, how I could hide one in my clothes or in my purse, how I could provoke conversations to get them to say incriminating things. "Are you sure you want to do this, Caroline? Once we start, there's no turning back." "I'm sure," I said. "I spent 40 years being an obedient wife, 35 years being a sacrificial mother. It's time for me to be a woman who defends herself." I left Arthur's office with a recorder the size of a quarter hidden in my purse. I also had a detailed plan for the next 4 months. 4 months to gather all the evidence I needed. 4 months to prepare the perfect trap. That afternoon, I went to the electronics store and bought a larger recorder to hide in my room. I also bought a small camera that looked like an ornament for the living room. The salesman, a very kind young man, showed me how everything worked. "It's to keep an eye on the house when I go on trips," I lied. "You know how things are with security these days." When I got home, Ryan had already returned from work. He was in the living room on the phone with Jessica. He had not noticed I was home. "Yes, my love," he was saying. "I already spoke with her this morning. She's on board. She says she's going to look for a home on her own." I stood listening from the kitchen. "No, it won't be a problem." I think she was even relieved. You know how old people are. They feel like a burden. I turned on the recorder in my purse. "The money? Don't worry. As soon as she's gone, we'll sell some of the furniture and we'll have cash for the first few months. Then we'll see about cashing out my dad's life insurance policy that's in her name." Every word was a stab. But now, every stab was being recorded. Every lie was being documented. "I love you, Jessica. Soon we'll be alone, and everything will be perfect." When he hung up, I walked into the living room with a smile. "Was that Jessica?" "Yeah, Mom. I told her you decided to look for a place to live. She's really happy." "I'm so glad," I lied. "Do you have a date for the wedding yet?" "We're thinking February. Jessica wants it to be in the spring." "How lovely. I'll start looking at homes tomorrow. I want to have everything settled by then." Ryan hugged me. "You're the best mom in the world. Jessica was right. She says you're so smart for making this decision." As he hugged me, I thought about everything I had recorded, about everything I was going to record in the coming months, about the surprise I had in store for them. That night, after dinner, I went to my room early. I placed the larger recorder under my bed and programmed it to record all night. I wanted to hear if Ryan and Jessica talked when they thought I was asleep. The next day, when I checked the recording, I discovered they had spoken. At 11 o'clock at night, Jessica had come over. They had been in Ryan's room for 2 hours, planning my future. "Did you find out how much the house is worth?" Jessica asked. "My Uncle Charlie says at least $500,000. It's in a really good neighborhood." "Perfect. With that, we can pay for the big wedding I want and still have enough left over to remodel everything." "And what if my mom changes her mind?" "She won't. Old ladies like her always end up doing what they're told. Besides, she already signed the loan papers. Even if she wanted to, she can't back out now." Listening to them plan my destruction with such coldness, with such calculation, I felt the last traces of maternal love disappear from my heart. They were not just greedy, they were cruel. They were planning to leave me with nothing while they enjoyed the fruits of my entire life's work. But what they did not know was that I was also planning. And my plan was going to be much better than theirs. Over the next few days, I continued my perfect performance. Every morning, I pretended to look for nursing homes in the newspaper. Every afternoon, I told them about the calls I had made. Every night, I listened to their secret conversations and recorded everything. The quiet woman had awakened, and she was ready for war. For the next 3 months, I became the best actress in the world. Every day I perfected my role as the resigned old woman who had accepted her fate. Meanwhile, I gathered evidence like a professional detective. The recordings piled up. Ryan and Jessica talked every night about their plans, about how they were going to remodel my house, about the furniture they were going to sell, about the money they were going to get from my husband's life insurance. After the wedding, we're changing all the locks, Jessica said, so your mom can't come back even if she changes her mind. What if she comes for her things? We give her an hour to pack the basics. The rest we sell or throw out. It's not like she'll need anything in the nursing home anyway. Arthur helped me change my will without Ryan knowing. Now, all my money and properties would be donated to a children's home. Ryan would not inherit a single dollar. Are you sure, Caroline? Arthur asked me. He's your only son. My son died a long time ago, I replied. This man living in my house is a stranger who wants to rob me. We also investigated the fraudulent loan. Arthur hired a private investigator who confirmed that Ryan had forged my signature. We had enough evidence to send him to prison for 5 years. But I did not want legal justice. I wanted poetic justice. The idea for the video came one night in November. Ryan and Jessica were watching a wedding show on television. They were talking about the ceremony they wanted. My dream is to have a wedding that no one will ever forget, Jessica said. One that people talk about for years. In that moment, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I was going to give Jessica the wedding she would never forget, but not for the reasons she expected. The next day, I called Arthur and explained my plan. I want you to hire someone who can edit the recordings into a video, I told him. I want them to take all the conversations where they talk about putting me in a home, selling the house, taking my money. What for? To show it to everyone at their engagement dinner. Arthur was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed. Caroline, you're diabolical. I love it. We organized everything with military precision. The video editor was a young man Arthur worked with on divorce cases. He knew how to combine audio with images to create impactful presentations. Mrs. Thompson, he said when I explained what I wanted, this is going to be a nuclear bomb. The video was perfect. It was 15 minutes long. It started with photos of Ryan as a child, with me and his father. Soft music played in the background. It looked like a normal tribute. But then, the recordings would start. Ryan's voice saying I was a burden. Jessica's voice explaining how they were going to get rid of me. The plans for the nursing home. The conversations about selling my furniture. All documented. All with dates and times. All in their own voices. The video ended with a sentence that appeared in large letters. So you know who Ryan Thompson and Jessica Monroe really are. Meanwhile, I kept pretending to look for nursing homes. Once a week, I would leave the house with my purse and come back with brochures from different places. Ryan and Jessica thought I was making arrangements to leave. Have you decided which home you like best? Ryan would ask. I'm between 2 options, I would lie. One is closer to downtown, but the other has better activities. Take your time, Mom. We want you to be comfortable. What a hypocrite. What a liar. But I just kept smiling and acting as if I believed him. In December, Jessica announced they had decided to have a large engagement dinner before the wedding. They were going to invite all the family, friends, and neighbors. They wanted it to be a memorable event. It's going to be in the ballroom at the country club, Ryan told me. Jessica wants it to be very elegant. How lovely, I replied. Can I help with anything? Don't worry, Mom. Jessica's parents are hiring everyone. You just have to show up, look pretty, and enjoy yourself. Perfect. I could not have asked for a better opportunity. A week before the dinner, I called the MC they had hired. He was an older man who had known my family for years. Mr. Davies, I said, I need to ask you a very special favor. I explained that I wanted to do a surprise for Ryan and Jessica. that I had a tribute video I wanted to show during the dinner. Of course, Mrs. Thompson. What time would you like me to play it? When I give you the signal, I said. It's a surprise, so it has to be at the exact right moment. Mr. Davies agreed without any questions. He thought I was just a sweet mother preparing something nice for her son. The last few days before the dinner were the hardest. Ryan and Jessica were excited. They talked constantly about the party, about the guests, about how perfect the night was going to be. In the end, everything worked out, Ryan said to me the night before. You found a place where you'll be happy. We're going to start our life together. Everybody wins. Yes, I replied. We are all going to get exactly what we deserve. That night, I could not sleep. Not from nerves, from excitement. After months of humiliation, lies, and betrayal, the moment of my revenge had finally arrived. I got up early and got ready with care. I chose my dark green dress. I had my hair done at the salon. I put on the pearl earrings my husband had given me for our 20th anniversary. I wanted to look perfect for my moment of triumph. When we arrived at the hall, everything was decorated with white flowers and gold lights. The guests began to arrive. My neighbors, Ryan's friends, Jessica's family, all dressed elegantly, all expecting a night of celebration. But I knew it was going to be a night they would never forget. A night where the truth would finally come to light. A night where Caroline Thompson would stop being a victim and become justice itself. The event hall was full by 8 o'clock in the evening. 50 people in their finest attire, champagne flutes in hand, cheerful conversations filling the air. The main table was adorned with white roses and gold candles. Everything looked like it was torn from the pages of a wedding magazine. I was seated in my place of honor, next to Ryan and Jessica. I wore my dark green dress, my pearl earrings, and a smile I had perfected over months. The smile of a proud mother celebrating her son's engagement. But inside, I felt something I had never experienced before. A cold calm. An absolute certainty. The tranquility of someone who knows they hold all the winning cards. Jessica was radiant in her form-fitting white dress. She moved through the hall like a queen, receiving congratulations, posing for photos, savoring every moment of attention. Ryan followed her with a lovesick gaze, like a teenage boy. "Caroline," said Margaret Hayes, approaching my table. "You look so lovely tonight, and everything is so elegant." "Thank you, Margaret. Jessica has very good taste for planning parties." As note, have they set a date for the wedding? "In February," I replied with the same smile. "And by then I'll be living in my new home." Margaret looked at me, puzzled. "Your new home?" "Yes. I've decided to move to a place more suitable for my age. Young people need their space." I did not tell her that place was supposedly a nursing home. I did not tell her I had not chosen anything voluntarily. I just smiled and changed the subject. At 8:30, dinner began. A garden salad, chicken marsala, wild rice. The food was delicious. The conversations flowed. Everyone seemed to be having a wonderful time. Jessica stood up to thank the guests. She spoke of how happy she was, how much she loved Ryan, how excited she was to start her new life. "And I want to especially thank my future mother-in-law," she said, looking at me, "for being so understanding and supporting us in all of our decisions." The guests applauded. Some looked at me with affection. They thought Jessica was honoring me. They did not know she was mocking me. Then Ryan spoke. He thanked Jessica's parents for paying for the party. He talked about their plans for the future, about the house they were going to remodel, about the children they wanted to have. "My mother always taught us that family is the most important thing," he said. "And now our family is going to grow." As he spoke, I discreetly checked my purse. The small remote control was there. Mr. Davies, the MC, glanced at me from time to time, waiting for my signal. Not yet. First, I wanted them to keep talking. I wanted them to keep lying in front of everyone. I wanted them to dig their own grave. At 9 o'clock, it was time for toasts. Jessica's parents said nice words about love and marriage. Ryan's friends told funny stories from college. Everyone toasted to the couple's happiness. Then Jessica decided to do something unplanned. She stood up again and asked for silence. "There's something else I want to say tonight," she announced. Her voice sounded different, louder, more confident. "Something everyone should know about our family situation." Ryan looked at her, surprised. He did not know what she was going to say. "Our wedding is going to represent a lot of changes," Jessica continued. "Necessary changes so that we can start our life on the right foot." I felt my heart quicken. Was she going to say what I thought she was going to say? "For example," Jessica went on, with a smile that did not reach her eyes, "my future mother-in-law has decided to move to a more appropriate place for her age, a place where she will have the company and care she needs." The murmurs began. Some guests looked confused, others uncomfortable. "It's a very brave decision," Jessica said, "because not all women her age have the courage to accept that they can no longer live alone." There it was, the public humiliation I had been waiting for. Jessica could not help herself. She had to make me look bad in front of everyone. She had to prove that she had won. "I really admire Caroline," Jessica continued, "for recognizing her limitations and making the right choice." The silence in the hall was awkward. People did not know whether to clap or stay quiet. Ryan's face was red, and he was trying to signal Jessica to stop, but she was on a roll. She had started and could not stop. "At first I thought it would be difficult to convince her," she said, laughing, "but it turned out to be easier than I imagined. In the end, older people understand when they are no longer useful." Those words were like a slap in the face. Several guests exchanged shocked glances. Margaret looked outraged. Frank was clenching his fists. "Jessica," Ryan mumbled, "please." "What?" Jessica said. "I'm just telling the truth. Your mom has served her purpose. She raised her son. She was a wife. Now it's her turn to step aside so the new generations can thrive." The venom in her voice was impossible to hide. She was no longer pretending to be sweet. She was no longer acting like the perfect fiancée. She was showing her true colors in front of everyone. And that was exactly the moment I had been waiting for. I stood up slowly. Everyone looked at me. Jessica fell silent, waiting for my reaction, waiting for me to cry, to break down, to run out, humiliated. But instead, I smiled, a wide, genuine, satisfying smile. "Jessica," I said, my voice clear and strong, "you're right about one thing. Tonight is going to be unforgettable." I took the small remote from my purse. I looked toward Mr. Davies and nodded. "Ladies and gentlemen," Mr. Davies announced, taking the microphone, "the mother of the groom has prepared a very special surprise, a tribute video for the future spouses." The lights went out. The giant screen lit up. Jessica looked at me, confused. Ryan frowned. And then, my revenge began. The screen showed photos of Ryan as a child. Soft music played in the background. Everything seemed normal, a typical tribute from a proud mother. But I knew what was coming next, and I could not wait to see their faces when they realized what they had really done. My moment had arrived. The soft music filled the hall as photos of a young Ryan appeared on the screen. The guests smiled tenderly, seeing images of my son playing in the park, blowing out birthday candles, graduating from high school. It all seemed like a normal tribute from a loving mother. Jessica relaxed in her chair. Ryan smiled, relieved, thinking it was just a sentimental video. The guests murmured affectionate comments about what a cute child my son had been. But then, the music changed. It became more dramatic. The family photos vanished, replaced by images of documents, bank papers, contracts, forged signatures. "What is this?" Ryan muttered. On the screen, text appeared in large letters. "The real plans of Ryan Thompson and Jessica Monroe." The hall fell into absolute silence. Jessica turned pale. Ryan tried to stand up, but I placed my hand on his arm. "Sit down, son," I said in a calm voice. "This is just beginning." The first recording began to play. Ryan's voice echoed clearly throughout the hall. "My mom's getting old. She's not thinking clearly anymore. We have to convince her to go to a home before she realizes what we're doing." The guests looked at each other in shock. Margaret brought a hand to her mouth. Frank shook his head in disgust. "That's not real," Jessica shouted. "It's a lie." But then the second recording started. Jessica's voice. "Old ladies like her always end up doing what they're told. Besides, she already signed the loan papers. Even if she wanted to, she can't back out now." The silence was sepulchral. 50 people stared at the screen, mouths agape, listening to how my son and his fiancée had plotted to rob and abandon me. "Turn that off!" Ryan yelled, trying to stand again. "Let it finish," I said. "After all, you always wanted an unforgettable wedding." The third recording was devastating. Jessica speaking coldly about selling my furniture. "Give her an hour to pack the basics. The rest we sell or throw out. It's not like she'll need anything in the nursing home anyway." Several guests began to rise from their seats. Some looked outraged. Others simply wanted to leave, but no one could look away from the screen. "This is illegal!" Jessica screamed. "You can't record private conversations." "Private conversations?" I replied without losing my composure. "In my own house? Planning to rob me in my own living room?" The video continued. More recordings played. Ryan talking about how he forged my signature for the bank loan. Jessica calculating how much money they would get from selling the house. The two of them laughing about how easy it had been to deceive me. After the wedding, "We're changing all the locks," Jessica's voice was heard saying on the recording. "So your mom can't come back even if she changes her mind." Jessica's father stood up from his table, his face red with shame. "Jessica, what is the meaning of this?" "Dad, don't believe her. That old woman is crazy." But it was too late. The video showed real documents. Copies of the forged papers. Evidence of everything they had planned. There was no way to deny it. The most shocking recording came at the end. Ryan and Jessica talking about my husband's life insurance policy. "As soon as she's in the home, we'll see about cashing out my dad's life insurance policy that's in her name. That money should be ours." "Enough!" Ryan screamed, slamming his fist on the table. "Enough!" But I was not going to stop. Not after months of humiliation. Not after they planned to steal everything I had worked for over 40 years. "There's still more," I said calmly. On the screen, photos of the nursing home brochures Ryan had been reviewing appeared. Documents where he had calculated the costs, notes in his own handwriting about how they were going to get rid of me. The text on the screen read his note aloud. "Mom, Oakwood Meadows, $3,000 a month, close to the hospital in case of emergencies." The murmurs in the hall turned into exclamations of outrage. Several people started yelling at Ryan and Jessica. Others simply got up and left without a word. "You are despicable," Margaret shouted. "How dare you treat your mother like that? You should be in jail," Frank added. Jessica desperately tried to explain herself. "You're misinterpreting everything. We just wanted what was best for her." "What was best for me?" I finally stood up. My voice rang out, clear and strong, throughout the hall. Stealing my house was what was best for me. Forging my signature was what was best for me. Planning to put me in a home against my will was what was best for me. Ryan had tears in his eyes, but they were not tears of remorse. They were tears of rage at being caught. "Mom, please," he mumbled. "We can talk about this in private." "No," I shouted. "No more private conversations, no more lies. For months, you treated me like I was a stupid old woman who didn't realize anything." The video came to an end. The final words appeared on the screen in enormous letters. "This is the true story of Ryan Thompson and Jessica Monroe, so that everyone knows who they really are." The silence that followed was absolute. No one knew what to say. No one knew where to look. Jessica broke the silence with a hysterical scream. This is all the revenge of a bitter old woman who can't accept that her son doesn't need her anymore. Those words were her final mistake. Because they confirmed everything the guests had just heard on the recordings. They confirmed it was all true. "Jessica," I said, looking her directly in the eye, "you're right about one thing. I am an old woman, but I am not stupid, and I am definitely not a victim." I walked toward the microphone that Mr. Davies had left on a nearby table. It was time for my final speech. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, "I apologize that you had to witness this, but it was necessary for everyone to know the truth. For months, I pretended to be the foolish mother who let herself be manipulated, but in reality, I was gathering evidence, documenting everything, preparing for this moment. Because nobody, and I repeat, nobody, has the right to decide my future without consulting me. Nobody has the right to steal from me, and nobody has the right to treat me like I'm trash." My revenge was complete. But the final blow was yet to come. The hall was in total silence. The few remaining guests looked at me with a mixture of shock and respect. Ryan had his head in his hands. Jessica was sobbing with rage, her runny makeup staining her white dress. But I was not finished. The video had only been the first act. The true final blow was about to land. "Arthur," I said, looking toward a table in the back, "could you please join me?" Arthur Vance stood up slowly. He had been watching everything from his seat, waiting for my signal. In his hands, he held a black leather folder containing the most important documents of my life. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, taking the microphone again, "I would like to introduce Arthur Vance, my attorney, and the attorney for my late husband for 30 years. Ryan jerked his head up. "An attorney? What do you need an attorney for, Mom?" "To protect myself from thieves," I replied, never taking my eyes off him. "Arthur, please explain to everyone what we've discovered." Arthur cleared his throat and opened the folder. "After investigating the documents Mrs. Thompson provided, we have confirmed that Ryan Thompson committed felony fraud by forging his mother's signature to obtain a bank loan, using this house as collateral." Murmurs filled the hall. Ryan turned ashen. "The loan amount is for $20,000, Arthur continued. "Money that Ryan used to purchase an automobile and for personal expenses, including the down payment for a honeymoon trip to Cancun." "That's not true!" Ryan yelled. "Mom gave me permission." "Permission?" Arthur smiled coldly. "Do you have any document proving that permission? Any paper signed by your mother authorizing the loan?" Ryan fell silent. He had nothing because he had never asked for my permission. "Furthermore," Arthur went on, "we have evidence that Ryan was planning to have his mother committed against her will and to appropriate her assets. This constitutes attempted property fraud and elder abuse." Jessica finally found her voice. "You can't prove any of that." "Can't we?" Arthur pulled a small device from his pocket. "All the conversations you heard in the video were recorded in this house over the past 3 months. We have over 20 hours of recordings where you specifically plan how to rob and abandon Mrs. Thompson." The silence was deafening. Every word from Arthur landed like a hammer blow. "But that's not all," I continued. "Arthur, show them the new will." Arthur produced an official document with seals and signatures. "Mrs. Thompson amended her will 2 months ago. Ryan Thompson is no longer the heir to anything whatsoever." Ryan shot up as if he had been shot. "You can't do that. I'm your only son." "You were my only son," I replied. "Now you are just a stranger living illegally in my house." "Where is everything going to go then?" Jessica asked, her voice cracking. "My entire inheritance," I said with satisfaction. "My savings, my house, my life insurance policies, everything will be donated to the Street Jude's Children's Home, to children who actually need help, not to greedy adults who want to rob their own mother." Ryan swayed on his feet. He grabbed the back of a chair to keep from falling. "Mom, please, can we fix this? Can we talk?" I laughed bitterly. "How do we talk after you forged my signature? How do we talk after you planned to have me committed? How do we talk after you calculated how much money you would make from my death?" Arthur held up another document. "We also have an eviction notice. Ryan Thompson has 24 hours to vacate his mother's property." "That's illegal," Jessica screamed. "You can't just kick him out like that." "Illegal?" Arthur looked at her with contempt. "Like forging documents? Like planning to rob an elderly woman? Like conspiring to commit fraud?" I walked over to Ryan and looked him directly in the eyes. My son, the baby I had held in my arms, the boy I had raised with so much love, the man who had betrayed all of it for money. "Ryan," I said in a calm voice, "for 35 years, I gave you everything. My love, my time, my energy, my money. I sacrificed my own life to give you the best life possible." Tears streamed down his cheeks. "But it was too late for tears. And you repaid me by planning to steal everything from me and abandon me in a home as if I were garbage. As if the years I dedicated to raising you were worth nothing. Mom, No," I interrupted. "You no longer have the right to call me Mom. Mothers are for children who respect them. You are just a thief who happens to have come from my womb. I turned to Jessica, who was still crying in her chair. "And you, Jessica Monroe, you, who told me I disgusted you from the first day, You who planned to get rid of me like a piece of old furniture. Caroline, Now it is you who disgusts me, I said. Not for your face or the way you dress. You disgust me for your rotten soul, for your heart full of malice. Arthur put the documents back in his folder. Mrs. Thompson, would you like us to proceed with criminal charges? Everyone held their breath. Ryan and Jessica looked at me in terror. They knew I had enough evidence to send them to prison for several years. I thought about my answer. I thought about justice. I thought about revenge. I thought about 40 years of happy marriage. I thought about 35 years of sacrificial motherhood. No, I said finally. I'm not going to send them to prison. Ryan sighed in relief. But, I continued, if you ever come near me again, if you try to contact me, if you even drive down my street, Arthur will file all the charges immediately. I approached the microphone one last time. Ladies and gentlemen, I am sorry you had to witness this, but sometimes it is necessary to show the truth, no matter how painful it is. The few remaining guests began to applaud, timidly at first, then with more force. Margaret stood up and shouted, "Well done, Caroline. Those miserable people deserved it." Others joined in the applause. For the first time in months, I felt respected, valued, strong. Ryan and Jessica gathered their things in silence and left the hall without saying goodbye to anyone. Their parents followed, ashamed and humiliated. The hall emptied slowly. The guests left, discussing what they had witnessed. Some gave me supportive hugs before they left. When I was finally alone with Arthur, I sat down in a chair and took a deep breath. "How do you feel?" he asked me. "Free," I answered. "For the first time in years, I feel completely free." But I knew the real freedom would come later. When I got home and Ryan was no longer there. When I could walk through my own house without fear. When I could begin my new life. My real life. 3 days later, my house was empty. Ryan had come for his things with 2 friends and a moving truck. He did not say a word to me. He did not look me in the eye. He packed his belongings in silence and left forever. Jessica did not come. I suppose she did not have the courage to face me after what had happened at the hall. I walked through the empty rooms, feeling something I had not experienced in years. Peace, real silence. Not the tense silence of someone tiptoeing through their own home, but the golden silence of someone who is finally in control of her own destiny. Ryan's room no longer smelled of beer and dirty socks. The living room no longer had his video games strewn everywhere. The kitchen no longer had his dirty dishes waiting for me to wash them like a maid. For the first time in 5 years, my house was truly mine. That first night, I slept better than I had in a long time. I did not have to listen for secret conversations. I did not have to pretend I was asleep while they planned my future. I did not have to act like the foolish old woman who understood nothing. The next day, my real new life began. Arthur helped me nullify the fraudulent loan. The bank, upon seeing all the evidence, decided not to prosecute Ryan legally, but they canceled the debt immediately and placed an alert on his credit file that would make it difficult for him to get loans for many years to come. "It's a kind of justice," Arthur told me. "He won't go to jail, but he won't be able to commit fraud so easily anymore." I also changed all the locks on the house. I wanted to be certain that Ryan could not get in, even if he had copies of the keys. The first few days were strange. After 5 years of having people in the house, being alone felt odd. But not alone in a bad way. Alone in the sense of freedom. Alone in the sense of being able to do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. I could watch my soap operas without anyone making fun of me. I could cook my casseroles without anyone criticizing them. I could walk around in flip-flops in my own house without anyone telling me I was a ridiculous old woman. The story spread through the neighborhood in a matter of days. People talked about what had happened at the engagement dinner. Some congratulated me when they saw me on the street. Others looked at me with a mixture of pity and admiration. Margaret came to visit me every afternoon. "Caroline," she would say, "I never thought you were capable of something like that. I always saw you as so quiet, so submissive." "I didn't know I was capable either," I would reply. "Sometimes you don't know your own strength until you have no other choice." A week later, I received a call I did not expect. It was Jessica's mother. Caroline, she said in an ashamed voice, I wanted to apologize for what my daughter did. We didn't know anything about their plans. I know, I replied. You are not to blame for what your children did. Jessica is devastated. She says you ruined her life. I was quiet for a moment. Then I answered, I didn't ruin anyone's life. I just showed the truth. They ruined their own lives with their decisions. Is there any way to fix this? Any way you can forgive the kids? Ma'am, I said firmly, forgiveness is for those who are truly sorry. Your children weren't sorry they hurt me. They were sorry they got caught. That is a very big difference. She did not call again. 2 weeks later, Arthur brought me news about Ryan and Jessica. They had broken up. Jessica's family had called off the wedding. Ryan had moved to another city. Does it make you sad? Arthur asked. No, I answered honestly. I'm sad to have lost the son I thought I had, but that son never really existed. The man who lived in my house was a stranger. A month later, I made a decision that surprised even myself. I decided to travel. I had lived my whole life in the same town. I had gotten married there, raised my son there, been widowed there. I had never been away for more than 2 days at a time. But now I had savings. I had time. And I had the freedom to do whatever I wanted. I bought a train ticket to Chicago. It was the first time in my life I had traveled alone. The first time I had made a decision just for me, without consulting anyone. The trip was beautiful. I saw landscapes I had never seen. I met new people on the train. I stayed in a small but clean hotel. I walked through parks I had only seen on television. During those 5 days, I realized something important. I was not just Ryan's mother. I was not just Theodore's widow. I was not just the victim of a family betrayal. I was Caroline Thompson, a 67-year-old woman with a whole life ahead of her, with stories to tell, with places to see, with experiences to live. When I returned from the trip, I started making changes to my house. I painted the walls brighter colors. I bought new plants. I replaced some furniture with pieces I liked better. I also started going out more. I joined a group of ladies who met every Wednesday to play bingo. I started going to church on Sundays not out of obligation, but because I enjoyed the company. I even bought new clothes, dresses that made me feel pretty, comfortable yet elegant shoes, earrings that sparkled when I moved. 6 months after the engagement dinner, I was sitting in my garden drinking coffee when a certified letter arrived. It was from a lawyer in the next town over. Inside was a letter from Ryan. A letter asking for forgiveness, saying he understood his mistake, begging me to forgive him and give him another chance. I read the letter twice. Then I folded it and put it in a drawer. I did not reply. Not because I was cruel, not because I could not forgive, but because I understood something fundamental. Forgiveness does not mean going back to being a victim. Forgiveness does not mean allowing someone to hurt you again. I could forgive Ryan in my heart. I could wish him happiness in his new life. But that did not mean I had to let him back into mine. Some decisions are forever. And walking away from someone who betrays you is one of those decisions. That night, sitting in my renovated living room, I reflected on everything that had happened. On the woman I had been and the woman I had become. I had lost a son. But I had gained something more valuable, my dignity. I had lost a family, but I had reclaimed something more important, my freedom. I had lost the illusion of being loved unconditionally. But I had discovered something more powerful, the ability to love myself. I stood up and looked at myself in the living room mirror. I saw a 67-year-old woman with silver hair, expression lines around her eyes, and something new in her gaze. Strength, determination, peace. My story is my own now, I said aloud to my reflection. It's just beginning. And for the first time in decades, those words did not scare me. They gave me hope, because at 67 years old, I had learned the most important lesson of my life. It is never too late to defend your dignity. It is never too late to start over. And it is never, ever too late to choose to be free. A week before my daughter-in-law's wedding, I overheard my family planning to use me as a babysitter for 15 kids during the entire party. So, I changed my plans. On the day of the wedding, my son called me, desperate. "Where are you?" he yelled. I just laughed and told them not to wait for me, and not to expect the buffet I had promised to prepare either. My name is Antonella. I'm 72 years old, and I never thought that at my age I would have to teach my own family such a harsh lesson. For months, I had been preparing everything for my son Marco's perfect wedding. I had promised to handle the entire buffet because I wanted to save them money. I figured it would cost me about $3,000 for all the ingredients, but I was doing it with love. I had also offered to decorate the hall, make the centerpieces, and coordinate with the vendors. It was my gift to them, my way of showing how much I loved my son and how happy I was that he had found love again. Viviana seemed like the perfect daughter-in-law when Marco introduced her to me 2 years ago. She was always so polite, calling me Mrs. Antonella with respect, bringing flowers when she visited, and always offering to help in the kitchen. "Mrs. Antonella, let me help you with those dishes," she'd say with that charming smile. "Your food is delicious. Marco is so lucky to have grown up eating like this." Marco was beaming with happiness. After years of being a widower, seeing him in love again filled my heart with joy. I was in my kitchen that Tuesday afternoon, making the final shopping list for the buffet, when I heard voices in the backyard. My son Marco was on the phone with someone from work, and Viviana was chatting with her sister Andrea, who was visiting from out of town. At first, I didn't pay any attention. I was focused on calculating how many pounds of meat I'd need to feed 150 guests, how many salads to prepare, how many desserts to make. But then I heard my name, and something in Viviana's tone made me stop. I quietly moved closer to the kitchen window overlooking the yard, staying hidden behind the curtain. "Look, Andrea, I already have everything perfectly organized for the kids at the wedding," Viviana was saying in that sweet voice she always used with me. "Marco's mom is going to watch them during the whole party. There are like 15 of them," she continued, "from babies to teenagers, but she's super used to it. That way, we adults can enjoy ourselves without any annoying interruptions." Andrea laughed loudly. "That's brilliant, sis. The old lady will be in charge of all those screaming brats while you guys dance, drink, and have fun. Perfect. They won't bother anyone during the ceremony or ruin the reception photos." "Exactly," Viviana went on, her voice sounding different now, colder. "I already told Marco that his mom is great with kids and that she loves taking care of them. She won't even realize we're using her. She's always willing to help with anything. It's like having a professional, free babysitter for the whole night. Besides, it keeps her busy so she's not wandering around interrupting important conversations." "And she agreed to it?" Andrea asked. "We didn't even ask her directly," Viviana chuckled. "Marco just mentioned there would be some kids at the wedding, and she immediately offered to help if we needed anything. Obviously, we said yes. She's perfect for the job, she has experience, and won't charge us a dime." I felt like I had been slapped across the face. There I was, in my own kitchen, my hands covered in flour from baking cookies for her wedding, spending my own money, my time, and my energy to make their day perfect, while they were plotting to use me like a free servant without even asking. "The best part," Viviana continued, "is that since she'll be busy with the kids all night, she won't be able to eat much from the buffet she's making. More food for the important guests." They both laughed as if it were the funniest joke in the world. My heart was pounding so hard I thought they might hear it. 72 years of life, raising children, caring for grandchildren, always putting my family first, and this is how they repaid me, as if I were a 24/7 on-call maid. I stood there behind the curtain, feeling a rage build up from my toes to the top of my head. But it wasn't just anger. It was a mix of pain, disappointment, and a humiliation so deep it made my chest ache. For 2 years, I had treated Viviana like the daughter I never had. I welcomed her into my home with open arms, included her in all our family traditions, and even taught her the secret recipes that had been passed down for generations. "You know what else I love about the plan?" Viviana went on, unaware that I was hearing every word. "Since the old lady will be chasing kids all night, she won't be able to butt into our adult conversations. You know how mothers-in-law are, always wanting to give their opinion on everything and telling boring stories about when Marco was little." Andrea burst out laughing. "Oh my God, yes, my mother-in-law is the same way, always interrupting with her 50-year-old anecdotes that nobody cares about. At least yours will be useful for once." "Exactly. And the best part is, Marco thinks his mom is offering out of love. He has no idea we planned it this way from the beginning. Men are so naive, Viviana said with a malicious giggle. I heard Marco's footsteps approaching as he finished his call. What are my beautiful girls laughing about? He asked in that love-struck voice he always used with Viviana. I was just telling Andrea how organized I am, Viviana replied, her tone instantly switching back to the sweet one I knew so well. I've already figured out a way to keep the guests' kids from being a nuisance at the wedding. Your mom is going to watch them. My mom is an angel, Marco said with pride, always ready to help the family. It's incredible how she still has the energy to run after kids at her age. Yes, it's very convenient to have a mother-in-law like that, Viviana murmured. But Marco didn't catch the sarcasm in her voice. I stepped away from the window, feeling sick to my stomach. I couldn't believe what I had just heard. This woman, who had played the part of the perfect daughter-in-law for 2 years, who had made me feel loved and respected, who had even called me mom on special occasions, actually saw me as a free employee and a nuisance. I went up to my room, my legs trembling. I sat on the edge of my bed, the same one where I had slept with Marco's father for 30 years before cancer took him. I looked at the family photos on my nightstand. Marco graduating from college, his first communion, our beach vacations when he was little. I had dedicated my entire life to being the best mother possible, and now, when I thought I was gaining a daughter, I discovered I was just a useful tool. For the next few days, I acted as if nothing had happened. When Marco called to ask about the wedding preparations, I answered normally. Yes, honey, everything's going perfectly. The buffet is going to be delicious. When Viviana came to visit and said, Mrs. Antonella, don't worry too much about the wedding, try to relax and enjoy yourself, I just smiled and nodded. Of course, dear. I'm so excited. But inside, a plan was forming. If they wanted to play dirty, so could I. After all, I had lived 72 years, raised a child on my own after being widowed, managed a family business, and survived things they couldn't even imagine. I wasn't going to let them treat me like a servant right under my own nose. On Wednesday morning, 3 days after I heard that conversation, I called my best friend, Gabriella. We had known each other for over 40 years and had always been each other's confidants. Gabby, I need to tell you something, and then I need your help with a plan, I said without any preamble. Oh, Antonella, from the sound of your voice, I can already tell someone made you mad. Spill it, Gabriella replied, her curiosity piqued. I told her the whole story, from the conversation I overheard to how Viviana had been acting for 2 years. Gabriella listened in silence, and when I finished, she sighed deeply. Antonella, that girl is a snake. How dare she talk about you like that after everything you've done for them? You've spent a fortune on that wedding, dedicated months to organizing it, and this is how they repay you. I know, Gabby, but here's the good part. I have a plan, and I need your help. Tell me everything. You know I'm with you, whatever you need. I explained my idea, step by step. Gabriella got so excited she started clapping on the other end of the phone. Antonella, you're a genius. That spoiled brat is in for the surprise of her life. Count me in. I'll support you all the way. On Thursday, I started the first part of my plan. I called all the suppliers I had hired for the buffet. Good morning, this is Antonella Martinez. I need to cancel all the orders for this Saturday's wedding. Yes, I know it's last minute, but a family emergency has come up. Some tried to charge me penalties, but I managed to cancel everything by paying only small fees. Next, I called the florist where I had ordered the extra arrangements I was planning to gift them. Hi, I need to cancel the centerpieces for Saturday. No, I don't need them for another date. I simply won't be needing them anymore. On Friday night, the day before the wedding, I packed a small suitcase. I threw in clothes for 2 days, my medications, my favorite book, and a few personal items. Marco had called earlier to confirm everything was ready. Mom, how are the preparations going? Do you need me to come over and help with anything? No, honey. Everything is perfect. Tomorrow is going to be a wonderful day, I replied, my voice completely calm. Mom, you're the best. Viviana and I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done for our wedding. You don't have to thank me for anything, Marco. Tomorrow, everything will turn out exactly as you planned. I barely slept that night, but it wasn't from nerves. It was from the excitement of knowing I was finally going to reclaim my dignity. On Saturday morning, the day of the wedding, I woke up earlier than ever. It was 5 a.m., and my eyes were wide open, filled with an energy I hadn't felt in years. I showered, did my hair, and put on my favorite coral-colored dress, the one that made me feel elegant. Not the dress I had planned to wear to the wedding, but a special one I saved for important occasions. And this was definitely an important day. Gabriella arrived at 7 on the dot, just as we had arranged. She had 2 suitcases and a mischievous smile that gave me courage. "Ready for your Independence Day, Antonella?" she asked, hugging me tightly. "More than ready, Gaby. I've been unknowingly waiting for this moment for 2 years." We had booked a luxury spa 2 hours out of the city, a beautiful place overlooking a lake where we could completely relax. The package included massages, facials, gourmet food, and a room with a jacuzzi. All the money I had saved for the wedding buffet, I was now going to spend on myself for the first time in decades. Before leaving, I wrote a letter and left it on the kitchen table, right where Marco always sat when he came to visit. "Dear Marco, by the time you read this, I will be enjoying a well-deserved rest. For months, I prepared everything to make your wedding perfect. But yesterday, I learned that you and Viviana had other plans for me. Apparently, my role on your special day was to be the free babysitter for 15 children for the entire party, without anyone bothering to ask me if I even wanted that job. Since the buffet I promised was also part of my unconsulted duties, I decided to cancel everything. I hope you find a quick solution. I'll be back Sunday night. With love, but also with dignity, Mom." As Gabriella loaded the bags into the car, I took one last look around my house. I looked at the kitchen where I had planned to cook all night for the buffet, the dining room where I had arranged the centerpieces, the living room where I had tried out different floral arrangements. All of it had been done with love, but that love had been misinterpreted as an obligation. "Antonella, are you sure about this?" Gabriella asked as I got in the car. "Because once we drive away, there's no turning back." "Gaby, I'm 72 years old. If I don't respect myself now, when will I?" "Start the car." The drive to the spa was liberating. As the landscape flew by, Gabriella and I talked about everything we had been through together over the years. "Remember when our kids were little and we thought the biggest problem was getting them to eat their vegetables?" Gabriella laughed. "I miss those simple problems," I replied. "At least back then, when you did something out of love, it was received as love, not servitude." We arrived at the spa at 10 in the morning. The place was even more beautiful than the pictures online. Perfectly manicured gardens, a spectacular view of the lake, and an atmosphere of peace that calmed me instantly. The receptionist greeted us with champagne and strawberries. "Welcome, ladies. Your rooms are ready, and your treatments will begin in an hour. Is this a special occasion?" "Yes," I replied with a genuine smile. "I'm celebrating my independence." As I settled into my beautiful room with a lake view, I started to imagine what was happening back in the city. The wedding was supposed to start at 4 p.m., but the buffet preparations would normally begin very early. Marco would probably start calling around 9 to ask if I needed help carrying the food. At 11:30, just as I was heading in from my first massage, my phone started ringing. It was Marco. I let it go to voicemail. 5 minutes later, it rang again and again. I turned off the phone. "Mrs. Antonella, is everything all right?" the massage therapist asked, noticing my smile. "Everything's perfect, dear. Please, continue." For the next 3 hours, I dedicated myself completely to enjoyment. The hot stone massage relaxed muscles I didn't even know were tense. The facial left my skin glowing. Gabriella and I had lunch at the spa's restaurant, delicious food that I didn't have to cook, served by people who treated me with respect and kindness. "You know what I love most about all this?" I said to Gabriella as we sipped white wine on the terrace overlooking the lake. "What's that?" "That for the first time in 2 years, I'm doing exactly what I want to do, when I want to do it, without having to ask anyone if it's okay or if they need me to do something else first." Gabriella raised her glass. "I'll drink to that, and to the look on Viviana's face right now." At 3 p.m., I decided to turn my phone back on. I had 17 missed calls from Marco, 8 text messages, and surprisingly, 3 calls from Viviana. Marco had never called me so many times in a row in his entire life, not even when his father was in the hospital. The text messages grew increasingly desperate. "Mom, where are you? We've been calling you all morning. Mom, I found your letter. Please, call me urgently. Mom, the wedding starts in an hour. Please answer. Mom, where's the food? The guests are already arriving. Mom, please, we can talk about this after the wedding. Right now we need to solve the buffet situation. Mom," Viviana is crying. "Please, help us." The last message had arrived 15 minutes ago. "Mom, I know you're angry, but there are 15 kids here and we don't know what to do with them. Their parents are asking who is going to watch them." I took a deep breath and dialed Marco's number. He answered on the first ring. "Mom, where are you?" he shouted with a desperation I had never heard in his voice before. "Hello, honey. I'm at a beautiful spa with Gabriella, enjoying a chocolate massage. How's your wedding going?" "Mom, this can't be happening. The guests have arrived and there's no food. The caterers are wondering where the buffet is." Viviana won't stop crying. "Oh, honey, didn't you read my letter? I explained everything in there. I canceled the buffet when I found out my real job was to be the babysitter, not a guest. But Mom, the wedding has already started. We can't cancel now. Marco, you're a grown man, 45 years old, with a good job and a fiancé who is apparently a very good planner. I'm sure you'll figure something out. Isn't there a fast food place nearby?" "Mom, you can't be serious. Honey, I've never been more serious in my life. Enjoy your wedding. We're going to enjoy our spa. Oh, and don't expect us back early tomorrow. We're having breakfast here too." "Wait, Mom, Viviana wants to talk to you." I heard shuffling, crying in the background, and desperate voices. Then, Viviana's voice, no longer sweet. "Antonella, you can't do this to us. You promised the buffet. There are 150 people here." "Viviana, dear," I replied in the calmest voice I could manage. "I promised the buffet when I thought I was a special guest at your wedding. But when I found out I was actually the unpaid help, I changed my mind. As they say, you get what you pay for, and I was never paid for my services." "But the children? There are 15 kids here, and their parents expect someone to watch them." "Yes, I imagine that must be very difficult. Don't you have a sister who could help? What was her name? Andrea? I hear she thinks I'm great with kids." The silence on the other end of the phone was delicious. It lasted a few seconds that felt like an eternity. I could hear the chaos in the background, children crying, adults talking loudly, and what sounded like someone desperately moving tables and chairs. How do you know about Andrea?" Viviana stammered. And for the first time in 2 years, her voice sounded broken, stripped of that false confidence she always projected. "Oh, honey, you learn a lot of things when you're 72. One of them is that walls have ears, especially when people talk so loudly in my own backyard. Antonella, please, we can talk about this later. Right now I need you to." "No, Viviana, you don't need anything from me. From what I heard, what you need is a professional babysitter. I suggest you look in the yellow pages. I think they charge about $20 an hour per child. Let's see. 15 kids for 6 hours. That's $1,800. A bargain compared to the $3,000 I spent on your buffet." I heard Viviana yell to someone in the background. "Marco, your mother has lost her mind. She says she knows everything we talked about." Then I heard Marco's voice again, but it sounded different now, deeper, like when he was a boy and knew he'd done something wrong. "Mom, you heard us talking in the yard." "I heard a lot of interesting things, son. For example, that I'm a little old lady who's useful for keeping busy so I don't interrupt important adult conversations. I also heard that I'm apparently so used to watching kids that I won't even notice I'm being used. And my personal favorite, that I'm like having a professional free babysitter for the whole night." The silence was even longer this time. Gabriella, who had been listening to the whole conversation from her chair on the terrace, gave me a thumbs up. "Mom," Marco began, his voice like a scolded child. "Marco, you are 45 years old. You're a successful, intelligent, grown man. Did it seriously never occur to you to ask me if I wanted to spend my only son's wedding chasing after 15 children instead of enjoying the celebration? We thought you liked taking care of kids. I like taking care of my grandchildren from time to time, Marco. I don't like being the official wedding nanny without being consulted. And I definitely don't like hearing my daughter-in-law think I'm a nuisance who needs to be kept busy so I don't bother anyone. Viviana didn't say that. Marco, I'm 72. I don't have Alzheimer's. I heard every word. I heard when your fiancé told her sister how brilliant it was to get a free babysitter. I heard when they laughed about how I wouldn't get to eat much of the buffet because I'd be too busy. I heard when Andrea said that at least her mother-in-law would be useful for once. This time the silence was broken by a child screaming in the background and a woman's voice saying, "Where's the lady who was supposed to watch the children? My son ran off and is running all over the garden." "There's your answer, son," I said. "The show has already started. Mom, please, come. We'll pay you. We'll give you $500 to watch the kids." I laughed so hard Gabriella jumped. $500? Marco, 5 minutes ago this was a family favor I was supposed to do out of love. And now that you realize I'm not as dumb as you thought, you want to pay me $500 to ruin my coral dress chasing after children I don't even know? $1,000, Viviana shouted in the background. Viviana, dear, there's not enough money in the world to get me to that wedding now. But I'll give you some free advice. Next time you plan on using someone as an employee, ask them first. It's common courtesy. $2,000, Marco yelled, sounding completely desperate now. Marco, my son, listen to me carefully. If you had $2,000 to pay me to be a nanny, you also had money to hire a caterer instead of making me spend my retirement savings on your wedding buffet. But I guess it was more convenient for Mom to pay for everything and work for free, right? Gabriella poured me more wine and whispered, "You're brilliant, my friend." "Mom," Marco's voice was cracking now. "Please, don't do this to me. It's my wedding." "Marco, I'm not doing anything to you. You did something to me. You and your fiancé decided I was your personal employee without consulting me. I'm just deciding that I don't accept the job. But we can't get a caterer at this hour. The guests are going to starve. You know what that's called, son? Planning. When you organize a wedding, you're supposed to make sure you have food and childcare. You assumed you had both for free, but you were wrong. Antonella, you get here right now or we will never forgive you," Viviana shrieked, her true personality finally coming out. "There it is," I said to Gabriella, covering the phone. "There's the real Viviana." I uncovered the phone and replied in the calmest voice in the world. "Viviana, dear, there's nothing to forgive. You planned to use me. I decided not to be used. It's that simple. And frankly, after hearing your true tone of voice, I'm very glad I'm not there. You're a selfish old woman. You ruined my wedding," Viviana screamed. "No, dear, you ruined your wedding when you decided it was more important to save money than to treat your mother-in-law with respect. I just decided not to be an accomplice in my own humiliation." Marco got back on the phone. "Mom, the kids are running everywhere. One of them got into the kitchen and knocked over the cake. Another is hiding under the main table. The parents are furious." "Marco, where is the brilliant Andrea? Can't she help her sister with the kids?" "Andrea says she didn't know she was supposed to watch kids, that it was your job." "How convenient. The same Andrea who was laughing about the old lady taking care of all the screaming brats now can't help." "Mom, please." "Marco, I'm hanging up now because my chocolate massage is waiting. But before I go, let me tell you something. I hope this experience teaches you that your mother is not your personal employee. I am a 72-year-old woman who deserves respect, not a servant you can use whenever it's convenient." "What? Mom." "What, Marco? You're really not coming?" "I'm really not coming. Enjoy your wedding. We're going to enjoy our spa. And tomorrow? We'll see about tomorrow. First, I want you to reflect on what happened here, and I want your wife to reflect on what it means to be a family." "But, Mom." "Marco, I have to go. My massage therapist is waiting for me and, unlike you, she treats me with respect because I'm paying for her services." I hung up the phone and put it on silent. Gabriella was applauding. "Antonella, that was masterful. How do you feel?" "I feel free, Gaby. For the first time in 2 years, I feel completely free." After hanging up, I sat on the spa terrace, looking out at the lake and feeling a peace I hadn't experienced in a long time. Gabriella watched me with a mix of admiration and concern. "Antonella, are you sure you did the right thing?" she asked, taking a sip of her wine. "I mean, I know you were right, but Marco is your only son." "Gaby, it's precisely because he's my only son that I need to teach him this lesson. If I don't do it now, Viviana will turn him into someone who treats his own mother like an employee, and I will not allow that." For the next 2 hours, my phone buzzed constantly, but I kept it on silent. Gabriella and I enjoyed our spa treatments as if nothing was wrong. The collagen facial left my skin as smooth as a baby's, and the aromatic oil massage relaxed muscles that had been tense for years from the stress of trying to be the perfect grandmother. "You know what the funniest part of all this is?" I said to Gabriella while we were in the jacuzzi overlooking the sunset. "What's that?" "That for 2 years I tried so hard to be the ideal mother-in-law that I lost my own identity. I cooked what she liked, decorated how she thought was pretty. I even changed the way I dressed to fit her image of the perfect grandma. I always thought that was weird," Gabriella admitted. "You, who were always so independent, suddenly seemed like you were asking for permission for everything." "You were right, and the worst part is, the harder I tried to please her, the less she respected me. To her, my willingness to help was weakness, not love." At 8 p.m. I decided to check my phone. I had 43 missed calls, 26 text messages, and to my surprise, several messages from unknown numbers. Apparently, some relatives had gotten my number to try to convince me to come back. The messages were increasingly desperate and revealing. "Marco, Mom, we had to order pizza for all the guests. We spent $1,2 on pizza." "Marco, Mom, the parents of 3 of the kids have already left angry because no one could watch them." "Marco, Mom, Viviana is in the bathroom crying. She says you ruined the most important day of her life." "Marco, Mom, the photographer is asking if he can take family photos. I told him the grandmother couldn't make it." Unknown number. "This is Miguel, Viviana's father. Please, Mrs. Antonella, come and help us. My daughter is devastated." Another unknown number. "Antonella, this is Andrea. I know you heard our conversation. Please forgive us. It was just a joke." I laughed, reading Andrea's message. "A joke, Gaby? Planning to use someone as a free employee is a very expensive joke." But the message that caught my attention the most was from a number I didn't recognize. Unknown number. "Mrs. Antonella, this is Carmen, the mother of one of the children at the wedding. I wanted to tell you that several of us parents are very upset because we were told there would be someone watching the children, and it turns out there's no one. Some of us have already left. What they did to you is not right. Look at this, Gaby." I showed the message to Gabriella. "Apparently, I'm not the only one who thinks what they did was wrong. Of course not. Any decent person would realize that treating the groom's mother like that is unacceptable." At 9 p.m., as we were having dinner in the spa's elegant restaurant, my phone rang again. This time it was a number I recognized. My sister-in-law Elena, my late husband's sister. "Antonella, what's going on?" Marco called me crying, saying you didn't go to his wedding. Elena had always been direct and honest with me. I told her the whole story from the beginning, including the conversation I'd overheard. "Antonella, you did the absolute right thing," she said without a moment's hesitation. "If my brother were alive, he would have gone over there himself to teach Marco a lesson. Nobody treats their mother like that, especially not after everything you've done for that family. Do you really think I did the right thing, Elena?" "Antonella, I've known Marco since he was born. He's a good kid, but that woman has him completely manipulated. It was about time someone opened his eyes. And if that someone had to be you, his own mother, then so be it." Elena told me that other family members had already found out what happened because Marco had been calling everyone for help. "Most of them are on your side, Antonella. Your cousin Rosa said she always thought Viviana was fake, and your nephew Carlos is furious with Marco for treating you like this." After talking to Elena, I felt even more secure in my decision. I wasn't being a cruel mother. I was being a mother who respects herself and teaches her son to do the same. At 10 p.m., Gabriella and I went back to our rooms. I had a beautiful suite with a private terrace overlooking the lake. I put on my most comfortable nightgown, poured myself a glass of wine from the minibar, and sat on the terrace to watch the stars. My phone kept buzzing, but it didn't bother me anymore. Each vibration was a confirmation that I had made the right choice. If Marco and Viviana were truly sorry, they would have sent a sincere apology instead of trying to manipulate me into solving their problem. Finally, at 11, I decided to read the messages that had come in over the last few hours. Marco, Mom, the wedding is over. It was a total disaster. Marco, the kids broke 2 centerpieces and stained a guest's dress. Marco, Viviana's sister had to watch some of the kids and she's furious with us. Marco, Viviana says she'll never forgive me for my mom ruining her wedding. Marco, Mom, why are you doing this to me? I thought you loved me. That last message stung my heart, but it also confirmed that Marco still didn't get it. This wasn't about love. It was about respect. I could love my son with all my heart and at the same time refuse to let him disrespect me. I decided to reply only to that last message. Me, Marco, it's precisely because I love you that I won't allow you to treat me like an employee. A son who loves his mother doesn't plan to use her without asking. A son who loves his mother doesn't let his wife mock her. I love you, but I also love myself, and it was time you knew that. The reply came immediately. Marco, Mom, Viviana is saying maybe it's best if we move to another city. She says she can't live in the same place as someone who ruined her wedding. I read that message 3 times. Viviana was playing her final card. Emotional blackmail. Threatening to take Marco away from me. Me, Marco. If Viviana wants to move because she can't face the consequences of her own actions, that's a decision you two have to make as adults. But know this. A woman who truly loves you would never pull you away from your family as punishment for something you didn't even do. There was no response after that. I stayed on the terrace late into the night, listening to the sound of the lake and feeling a profound sense of peace. For the first time in 2 years, I wasn't worried about pleasing someone else. I wasn't thinking about what I could cook for Marco tomorrow or what favor Viviana might need. I was thinking about me, about Antonella, the 72-year-old woman who had raised a wonderful son, who had maintained a happy marriage for 30 years, who had survived widowhood with dignity, and who deserved to be treated with respect by her own family. That night, I slept better than I had in months. On Sunday morning, I woke up with a strange feeling. I felt rested and at peace. It had been a long time since I'd woken up without the constant anxiety of thinking about what I needed to do to keep everyone happy. Gabriella and I had agreed to meet for breakfast at 9, but I was already awake at 7, enjoying the silence and the view from my terrace. My phone had been silent all night, which felt more significant than all the desperate messages from the day before. Had Marco finally understood, or was he so angry that he had decided not to speak to me anymore? Either option seemed better than continuing to receive manipulative messages. When Gabriella and I met for breakfast, she looked at me curiously. You look different, Antonella. Lighter. I feel different, Gabby. It's like I've been carrying a huge weight on my shoulders for 2 years and I've finally put it down. We ordered a full breakfast with fresh fruit, yogurt, pancakes, and Colombian coffee. We talked about everything except the wedding. We discussed our plans for the coming months, the books we wanted to read, the trips we had always dreamed of taking, but always postponed to be available for our families. You know what, Gaby? I think we're going to take that trip to Europe we've always planned. Really? You're not going to wait and see if Marco and Viviana need you to watch their future children? Marco is 45 years old. If he decides to have kids, he can hire a nanny like everyone else. I'll be available as a grandmother, not as an employee. After breakfast, we decided to extend our stay a little longer. We booked the private jacuzzi for 2 more hours and spent the morning completely relaxing. At noon, as we were packing to leave, I decided to turn my phone on again. I had 3 new messages, all from Marco, sent in the early morning. Marco. Mom, Viviana and I talked all night. She's very hurt, but she admits that maybe we didn't treat you well. Marco. We can talk when you get back. The messages sounded different. Less desperate, more thoughtful. But I also noticed something important. There was no real apology, just an admission that maybe they hadn't treated me well. Maybe wasn't good enough for what had happened. I decided not to reply yet. I wanted to get home, settle in, and think carefully about what I wanted to say. The drive back was calm. Gabriella and I talked about what this weekend had meant to me. You know the most important thing I learned, Gabby? That you can love your family and set boundaries at the same time. All these years I thought loving meant saying yes to everything, but now I understand that sometimes loving means saying no. That's a lesson a lot of women from our generation need to learn, Gabriella replied. We were raised to believe our value depended on how much we sacrificed for others. I got home at 5 in the afternoon. The house felt different, as if it had been empty for much longer than 2 days. I made myself some tea, put on my comfiest clothes, and sat in my favorite armchair. It was time to decide what to do next. At 6 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I looked out the window and saw Marco's car. He was standing at my door, alone, with his head down. I took a deep breath and went to open it. "Hi, Mom," he said softly. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days. "Hello, Marco. Come in." We sat in the living room, him on the sofa, and me in my armchair. The silence stretched for a few minutes until Marco finally spoke. "Mom, I need to apologize." "I'm listening." Viviana and I talked all night after the wedding. At first, she was furious with you, but when I told her exactly what you overheard, she realized how bad everything she said sounded. "And you realized it too?" Marco lowered his head even more. "Yes, Mom. I realized that for 2 years, I've been treating you like my employee instead of my mother. And how do you feel about that?" "I feel horrible. I'm ashamed. Dad must be rolling in his grave over how I treated the woman he loved for 30 years. The mention of his father touched my heart, but I kept my composure. "Marco, I need you to understand something. This isn't just about the wedding. It's about 2 years of assuming I was available for everything without ever asking if I wanted to do it." "I know, Mom. And you're right. When Viviana suggested we ask for your help with something, I never stopped to think if it was fair to you. I just thought, Mom always says yes, so it's not a problem. Period. And Viviana? How does she really feel?" Marco sighed deeply. "She's ashamed. She says she's never had a mother-in-law before and didn't know how to act. But she recognizes that what she said about you with Andrea was very wrong." "Marco, does she recognize that? Or are you just trying to soften what she really thinks?" "No, Mom. She recognizes it. In fact, she wants to come and apologize to you in person, but I told her I had to talk to you first." I got up and walked to the window. My garden looked neglected. I'd been so busy with wedding prep that I hadn't had time to tend to my flowers. "Marco, I need to ask you a very direct question, and I want you to be honest. Does Viviana respect me as a person, or does she see me as a useful resource that's available when she needs it?" Marco was quiet for a long moment. "Mom, I think until yesterday, those two things had gotten mixed up. But after seeing the consequences of treating you like a resource, she realized she had lost sight of the person. And you? Do you see me as your mother, or as your personal employee?" "Mom, that question hurts, but I understand why you're asking. And the honest answer is that over these past 2 years, without realizing it, I started to see you more as someone who solved my problems than as my mother who deserved to be consulted and respected." I sat down again and looked him straight in the eye. "Marco, I appreciate your honesty, but I need you to understand that things are going to change from now on." "I understand, Mom. What do you need from us?" "I need that the next time you want to ask me for a favor, you ask if I can, and if I want to do it, not assume I'll say yes. I need you to treat me like a guest at your family events, not as the service staff. And I need Viviana to understand that I am her husband's mother, not her employee." "All of that is fair, Mom. Anything else?" "Yes. I need you to understand that I have the right to say no without giving an explanation. And when I say no, you won't try to manipulate me or make me feel guilty to change my mind. Understood? And Marco, one more thing. The next time Viviana speaks badly of me to anyone, you are going to defend me. You are not going to stand by silently while your wife disrespects me." Marco nodded vigorously. "You're right, Mom. I should have defended you from the beginning." We sat in silence for a few minutes. I could see Marco was processing everything we'd talked about. "Mom, will you forgive me?" "Marco, you are my son, and I will always love you. But forgiveness is something that is built with actions, not just words. I need to see real changes in how you treat me before I can say everything is forgiven. That's fair. And Viviana? Will you give her a chance to apologize? If she wants to apologize sincerely, not because you told her to, but because she truly regrets how she treated me, then yes, I will listen. She wants to, Mom. But she's afraid you'll reject her. Marco, I don't reject people who apologize sincerely, but I also don't accept fake apologies just to keep the peace. I understand. When would be a good time for her to come? Give her a few days to think carefully about what she wants to say. And Marco, make sure she understands that I don't expect her to pretend we're best friends overnight. I just expect basic respect. Marco stayed a while longer, and for the first time in a long time, we had a real mother-son conversation, not a boss-employee one. He told me how he'd felt during the wedding, watching guests wonder why there was no food and why children were running unsupervised everywhere. Mom, when the parents started asking me where the person who was supposed to watch the kids was, I realized that we had never actually asked you if you wanted to do that job. We just assumed. And how did you feel when you realized that? I felt like an idiot, Mom. And I felt ashamed that my own mother had to teach me such a basic lesson about respect. When Marco left that night, I thought about our conversation. He seemed genuinely sorry, but I also knew that apologies come easy when you're faced with the consequences of your actions. The real test would be to see if the changes lasted beyond this crisis. The next 3 days were quiet. I didn't get any calls asking for favors, no messages assuming I'd be available for something. It was a strange but liberating feeling. For the first time in 2 years, my days were completely my own. On Wednesday afternoon, Marco called. Mom, Viviana would like to come talk to you tomorrow afternoon, if you're okay with that. Is she sure she wants to? Or does she feel obligated? She's sure, Mom. She's been very quiet these past few days, reflecting on everything that happened. All right. Tell her to come tomorrow at 4. Thanks, Mom. It means a lot to both of us that you're giving her this chance. Marco, I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me, because I want to know if this situation can be fixed or if I need to accept that my daughter-in-law and I will never get along. On Thursday at 4 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, I was surprised to see Viviana. She looked completely different from how I'd always seen her. She wore no makeup, her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she was dressed in jeans and a plain blouse. But the most striking thing was her expression. She no longer had that perfect smile she always wore. She looked vulnerable, almost fragile. Hello, Mrs. Antonella, she said softly. Thank you for seeing me. Come in, Viviana. Sit wherever you'd like. She sat on the edge of the sofa, as if ready to run at any moment. I sat in my armchair and waited for her to speak. I don't know how to start, she admitted after a few minutes of silence. Start wherever you feel comfortable. Mrs. Antonella, I want to apologize for everything I said about you. It was cruel, disrespectful, and completely unfair. And why did you say it? Viviana looked down. Why? Because I'm 26 years old, and I've never had a mother-in-law before. My mom died when I was 15, and my dad remarried a woman who never liked me. When I met Marco and you, I didn't know how to handle having a mother figure again. And your solution was to treat me like an employee? It wasn't conscious, Mrs. Antonella. At first, you intimidated me. You're so self-assured, so good at everything you do, so loved by the whole family. I felt like I could never measure up. Viviana, that doesn't explain why you spoke about me that way to your sister. Viviana was quiet for a long moment, and when she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. Because when you feel insecure, sometimes you try to feel better by making others seem less important. I know it sounds horrible, but it's the truth. At least you're being honest. Mrs. Antonella, when you didn't show up to the wedding and I read your letter, I realized something terrible. I realized I had been trying to turn Marco into someone who put my comfort before his own mother. And that's so wrong. And how do you feel about that now? I feel ashamed. I feel guilty. And I feel sad because I missed the chance to have a real relationship with the woman who raised the man I love. Tears started to roll down her cheeks, and for the first time since I'd known her, they seemed genuine, not calculated. Viviana, I appreciate your honesty, but I need to ask you something directly. Do you really want a relationship with me? Or do you just want to fix this to make Marco happy? At first, I admit, I just wanted to fix things so Marco wouldn't be sad. But these past few days I've been thinking a lot, and I realized that I lost something important too. I lost the chance to have a mother again. Viviana, I can't be your mother. Your mother passed away, and no one can replace her. But I can be your mother-in-law who respects you and expects respect in return. That's all I want, Mrs. Antonella. Mutual respect and a chance to start over. And are you willing to truly change the way you treat me? Yes. I will no longer assume you're available to help us. I will ask you before planning anything that involves you. And I will try to include you as family, not as service staff. And what happens if I say no to something you ask? Then I will respect your decision without trying to make you feel guilty. We sat in silence for a few minutes. I could see Viviana was waiting for my answer, but I needed time to process everything she'd said. Viviana, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't trust you yet. You're going to have to prove to me with your actions that these changes are real, not just words to get out of trouble. I completely understand. What do you need me to do? I need time. I need to see how you treat me in the coming months when you're not in a crisis, when things go back to normal. Will you give me that opportunity? Yes, Viviana. I will give you one chance. But it will be the only one. If you disrespect me or treat me like an employee again, there won't be a second chance. I understand. And, Mrs. Antonella, is there anything specific I can do to start rebuilding your trust? I thought about her question for a moment. Yes, there is. I want you to tell your sister Andrea what really happened. Not a watered-down version, but the whole truth. I want her to understand that what you two said about me was wrong. Viviana nodded immediately. I already did, Mrs. Antonella. I called her on Monday and told her everything. She wants to apologize to you, too. I don't need an apology from Andrea. I don't know her well enough for her opinions to matter to me. But I do need her to understand that she can't speak about me that way when she comes to my house. She understands. In fact, she's very embarrassed about what she said. All right. Anything else you want to say? Yes. I want to thank you for teaching us this lesson. I know it wasn't your responsibility to educate us about respect, but you did it in a way we'll never forget. Viviana, I didn't want to teach you a lesson. I just wanted to be treated with dignity, and you had every right to demand that. Mrs. Antonella, do you think we can ever have a normal mother-in-law and daughter-in-law relationship? That's going to depend on you, Viviana. I'm willing to try if you really change. I will change. I promise you. Don't promise me anything. Just show me. Viviana got up to leave, but before she reached the door, she turned back to me. Mrs. Antonella, can I ask you something? Go ahead. How can I be a good daughter-in-law? I seriously don't know how. Her question surprised me with its simplicity and honesty. Viviana, being a good daughter-in-law, is the same as being a good person. Treat others how you want to be treated. Ask before you assume. Respect boundaries. And remember that behind every favor someone does for you, there's a person who chose to help. Can I ask you when I have questions about something? If they are genuine questions and not disguised manipulation, yes. Thank you, Mrs. Antonella, for everything. When Viviana left, I sat in my living room feeling a mix of cautious hope and emotional exhaustion. The conversation had seemed sincere, but only time would tell if the changes would last. The next 2 weeks were revealing. For the first time in 2 years, Marco and Viviana didn't call asking for any favors. There were no messages assuming I'd be available to cook, clean, or take care of something. At first, I thought they were angry and giving me the silent treatment, but then I realized they were simply respecting my space like never before. The first real test came on the Friday of the second week. Marco called around 7 p.m., and when I saw his name, I automatically thought, what do they need now? But I was pleasantly surprised. Hi, Mom. How are you? I'm well, son. And you? Good, too. Mom, I'm calling to ask if you'd like to have dinner with us on Sunday. Viviana is going to cook. We thought it would be nice to spend time together. I was silent for a moment, processing that he had made a real invitation, not a disguised assignment. Viviana is cooking? You don't expect me to cook? No, Mom. Not at all. We want to invite you as our guest. You just have to show up and enjoy. And do I need to bring anything? Dessert? Wine? Something like that? Just bring yourself, Mom. That's all we need. I accepted the invitation, but with some caution. I had learned not to trust completely until I saw the actions. On Sunday, I arrived at their house at 6 p.m., carrying only a bottle of wine that I had bought because I wanted to, not because they had asked me to. When Viviana opened the door, she looked nervous but genuinely happy to see me. "Hello, Mrs. Antonella. So glad you came. Please come in." The table was set for 3, with nice plates and simple but elegant decoration. I could smell something delicious cooking. "What are you making?" I asked. "Roasted chicken with vegetables. I hope you like it. I followed a recipe online, but I don't know if it's as good as your cooking. I'm sure it's delicious." During dinner, the conversation was different from any we'd had before. Instead of talking about what they needed or what plans involved me, we talked about normal things, how my week had been, what book I was reading, the day's news. Viviana had made a real effort with the food. It wasn't perfect, the chicken was a little dry and the vegetables a bit salty, but she had put love into it. And, more importantly, she didn't ask me to help serve, clean, or do anything other than enjoy the meal. "Mrs. Antonella," Viviana said, as she served a store-bought dessert, "can I ask you something?" "Of course. How did you meet Marco's dad?" "He's told me a little, but I'd like to hear it from you." I was surprised she wanted to know more about our family history, not as useful information, but out of genuine curiosity. I told her about how I met Roberto in college, how we fell in love, the early years of our marriage, the birth of Marco. "It sounds like you were very happy," Viviana commented. "We were. 30 wonderful years. Of course we had our problems like all couples, but we always respected each other." "What was the secret?" "There were no secrets, Viviana. Just honest communication and the daily decision to choose love over pride." Marco smiled. "Dad used to say that Mom was his best friend in addition to being his wife. And he was mine. That's why it hurt so much when I felt that you two didn't see me as part of the family, but as someone useful you could use." "That will never happen again," Viviana said firmly. "I promise." "Don't promise, Viviana. Just show me, day by day." After dinner, something unexpected happened. Marco got up and started clearing the plates. "Mom, you sit and relax. Viviana and I will clean up. Are you sure?" "I can help." "No, Mom. You're our guest," Viviana said. "We've got this." I sat in the living room, listening to Marco and Viviana in the kitchen, washing dishes and talking softly. It was the first time in 2 years they had treated me like a guest instead of staff. When they finished, we sat in the living room for coffee. The conversation remained natural and comfortable. Viviana asked about my friends, my hobbies, my plans, questions a normal daughter-in-law would ask, not a boss to her employee. "Mrs. Antonella," Viviana said, as I was getting ready to leave, "would you be available for lunch next Saturday? There's a new restaurant I wanted to try, and I thought maybe you'd like to join us." "Just lunch? You don't need me to do anything else?" "Just lunch. As a family? Then yes, I'd love that." When I got home that night, I felt optimistic for the first time since the wedding. It seemed Marco and Viviana were really making an effort. The following days confirmed my impression. Marco called midweek, but not for a favor. He just wanted to know how I was and to tell me he got a promotion at work. "That's wonderful, son. Congratulations." "Thanks, Mom. I wanted you to be the first to know." "And how are you going to celebrate?" "Viviana wants to take me to a fancy dinner on Friday. Would you like to join us?" Another genuine invitation, no hidden agenda. "I'd love to, Marco." On Friday night, we went to a beautiful restaurant downtown. Viviana had made the reservation and handled all the details. We celebrated Marco's success like a normal family. No one asked me to organize, cook, or take charge of anything. "Mom," Marco said as we toasted with champagne, "I want to thank you for teaching us how to be a real family." "What do you mean?" "Before, we had a toxic dynamic where you did everything and we took advantage. Now, we have a real relationship where we all contribute and we all enjoy. And it's so much better this way," Viviana added. "I'd never experienced what it's like to have a family where everyone takes care of each other. instead of one person taking care of everyone else. That night, driving home, I reflected on the changes. The wedding boycott had been painful but necessary. Sometimes you have to break something completely to rebuild it the right way. The next big test came 2 weeks later. Marco called me on a Tuesday afternoon, and from his tone, I could tell he was nervous. "Mom, I need to ask you for a favor." My heart sank a little. Were they going back to the old patterns? "What is it, Marco?" "Saturday is Viviana's birthday, and I wanted to throw her a surprise party. Could you help me organize it?" "Marco, are you asking me to organize the whole party for you?" "No, Mom, not at all. I've already hired the caterer, booked the venue, and sent the invitations. I just need help with the decorations, because you have such great taste. But obviously, I'll pay you for your time and ideas." I was shocked. Marco had done most of the work himself. He was only asking for specific help with something he knew I was good at, and he was offering to pay me. "Marco, you don't need to pay me to help with decorations. I can do that as a gift for Viviana, but I appreciate that you asked instead of assuming. So you'll really help?" "Of course. I think it's a very sweet gesture." "Thanks, Mom. And if at any point you feel it's too much work, just tell me and I'll hire someone else." "It's fine, son." That conversation confirmed that the changes were real. Marco had learned to plan his own events, not assume my availability, and offer compensation for my time. But more importantly, he had learned to give me an out without making me feel guilty. The day of Viviana's birthday party was a complete revelation. Marco and I spent the morning decorating his backyard with gold balloons and fresh flowers. He had bought all the materials and just needed my ideas on how to combine the colors and where to place everything. We worked together as a team, chatting and laughing. "Mom, this looks beautiful," Marco said as we hung the last string of lights. "Viviana is going to be so thrilled." "I hope so. It's clear you love her very much." "I do. But I also learned that loving my wife doesn't mean I stop respecting my mother." "I'm glad you learned that, son." When Viviana arrived that night, her surprise was genuine and touching. Seeing the decorated yard and all her friends waiting, she started to cry with joy. "I can't believe you did all this," she exclaimed, hugging Marco. "Mrs. Antonella helped me with the decorations," Marco told her. "She has an incredible talent." Viviana came over and gave me a sincere hug. "Thank you, Mrs. Antonella. Everything looks gorgeous." "It was a pleasure to help, Viviana. Happy birthday." During the party, I watched how they interacted with me. They included me in conversations, introduced me to their friends as Marco's mom with pride, not as the lady who helped decorate. They sat me at the main table, as family. The most significant moment was when one of Viviana's friends commented on the beautiful decorations. "Viviana, you have exquisite taste. Where did you learn to decorate like this?" "Actually, it was Mrs. Antonella who designed everything," Viviana replied immediately. "She has a natural talent for these things. I was just lucky she helped me. Instead of taking credit for my work, she gave it all to me. It was a small but meaningful change." 2 months after the disastrous wedding, I got an unexpected call. It was Carmen, the mother who had sent me that supportive text. "Mrs. Antonella, I hope you remember me." "Of course I remember you, Carmen. How are you?" "I'm well, thanks. I'm calling because I wanted to tell you something." "Do you remember Miguel, Viviana's father?" "Yes, what about him?" "Well, it turns out we met at the wedding, when we were all trying to control our unsupervised kids. We started talking about what happened with you, and we both agreed that what they did to you was very wrong. And, well, we've been dating ever since, and he's told me more details. I wanted you to know that he also scolded Viviana for how they treated you." I chuckled softly. "Really? Viviana's father defended me?" "Yes, and quite strongly. He told Viviana that you had been incredibly generous by preparing the buffet and that using you as a babysitter without asking was unacceptable. He says he was very embarrassed when he found out the whole story." "I'm glad to hear that, Carmen. Mrs. Antonella, all of us parents at that wedding were very impressed with what you did. Not many people your age would have the courage to stand up for themselves like that. Sometimes you have to defend yourself, no matter your age." "Exactly. And we wanted you to know that we respect you a lot for that." That call filled me with an unexpected satisfaction. Not only had I defended my dignity within my family, but my example had resonated with others. 3 months after the wedding, Viviana invited me to lunch, just the two of us. We met at a quiet cafe, and we had the most honest conversation we'd ever had. Mrs. Antonella, can I tell you something personal? Of course, Viviana. Since the wedding, I've been going to therapy. Really? Why? Because I realized I have issues with mother figures. After my mom died, I developed defense mechanisms that included devaluing other older women to protect myself emotionally. That explains a lot. Yes. My therapist helped me understand why I felt so threatened by you at first. You represented everything I had lost, and instead of letting myself miss my mom, I decided to pretend that mothers weren't important. Viviana, that must have been very painful for you. It was, but I didn't realize it. I thought I was over my mom's death, but I had really just buried the pain. And how do you feel now? I feel freer. And I feel grateful to have a second chance with you. Viviana, I really appreciate you telling me this. And I'm glad to know you're working on yourself. Mrs. Antonella, would you let me start over? As if we were meeting for the first time. What do you mean? I want to really get to know you. Your stories, your dreams, your opinions, not as the mother-in-law who can be useful, but as Antonella, the person. I would like that very much, Viviana. Can I ask you a question? As many as you want. What dream of yours was left unfulfilled when you got married and had Marco? The question surprised me with its depth. I always wanted to write a book. About what? About my grandmother's recipes and our family stories. But I always found excuses not to start. So why don't you start now? Viviana, I'm 72 years old. It's not too late. Mrs. Antonella, you taught me that it's never too late to stand up for yourself and change a situation. Maybe it's not too late to fulfill a dream either. That conversation planted a seed in my mind. 6 months after the wedding, Marco and Viviana invited me to dinner to share some special news. Mom, we're pregnant, Marco announced with a huge smile. That's wonderful, I exclaimed, hugging them both. I'm going to be a grandmother. Mrs. Antonella, Viviana said, taking my hands. We want to ask you something important. Go on. We want you to be the grandmother who chooses how much she wants to be involved. We won't assume anything. We won't expect you to watch the baby whenever we want to go out. We want you to decide what kind of grandmother you want to be. And if you want to be the grandma who comes over to drink tea and tell stories once a week, that's perfect, Marco added. If you want to be the grandma who occasionally babysits, that's perfect too. You decide. I was moved to tears. Kids, that's all I ever wanted. The freedom to choose how to love my family. And what do you choose, Mrs. Antonella? Viviana asked. I choose to be the grandmother who is available when I'm truly needed, but who also has her own life, her own plans, and her own dreams. Perfect, Marco said. That's exactly what we want. A year after the disastrous wedding, I published my family recipe book. It was called Cooking with Love, Serving with Dignity, Recipes and Reflections from a Modern Grandmother. Viviana helped me promote it on social media, and Marco organized a launch party at their house. During the book presentation, I reflected on everything that had happened since that afternoon in my backyard. This book, I told the guests, is not just about recipes. It's about the importance of maintaining our dignity while serving the people we love. It's about the difference between giving out of love and being used for convenience. After the presentation, Viviana approached me. Mrs. Antonella, I have a confession to make. What is it? The person who inspired this book the most was you. Your courage to stand up for yourself taught me that you can love deeply and respect yourself at the same time. Viviana, that means a lot to me. Mrs. Antonella. Can I call you Mom Antonella from now on? I would love that, dear. That night, as I signed copies of my book, I realized that the decision not to go to that wedding was the best decision I had made in years. Not only had I regained my dignity, but I had taught my family the true meaning of mutual respect. I'm 73 now, with a grandchild on the way, a published book, and a family that treats me like the respected matriarch I always should have been. Sometimes, saying no is the most powerful way of saying yes to yourself. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever felt used by your own family, Remember that you deserve respect, no matter your age. If you've gone through something similar, share your experience in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and let me know where you're listening from. It's never too late to reclaim your dignity.